Hello grade 8s, we are on page 44 and 45 of your accounting booklets. Now this activity differs a little bit from the previous activity in the sense that we've got another column here, which is the accounting equation columns, which is assets and owner's equity, and we have to talk about that as well within the question. Okay. So what we've already done an activity where we've got both accounts, account 1 and 2, which we identify within the transaction, and then we also classify it in terms of a type of account. So this account 1 will work with that account 1, and this account 2 with that account 2, and then over here we must just indicate the effect on the accounting equation. Alright, take note, whenever a transaction occurs, when it's a cash transaction which you are doing at the moment, bank account of the business will be affected. Okay, so in the example, bought a delivery van. Alright, so if I'm buying a delivery van, the one account will be bank, and if I'm buying delivery van, a delivery van will be seen as vehicles. Okay, so the two accounts involved is bank and vehicles. That's just the example that we're looking at. And now, what is that two accounts? Alright, so bank is a current asset. Again, it will always be the same when we are doing these examples, that bank will be a current asset. And then vehicles will be a fixed or non-current asset. It can be any one of the two different names for the same thing. Now, what happens if we look at these two accounts? Both of them are assets. So we can only write something under the assets column and not under owner's equity. So the bank will decrease, the cash decrease, because we're paying money out, so it's a minus under assets. And then obviously the vehicles, being an asset as well, will increase. And that is why it's a plus for assets and vehicles increased. We didn't include the amounts now, but if it was 50,000 Rand, it would have been minus 50,000 here and plus 50,000 here if it was a delivery van of 50,000 Rand that we bought. Okay, so that's the first transaction, the first example. Alright, so I made a copy of page 45, so that's just easier to be able to look and write down the answer. Okay, so 1.1, paid for stationery bought. Okay, bank is the one account, and stationery will be the other account because we bought stationery. Bank is the place where we found the money, and stationery will definitely be the place or the thing that we bought. Okay, then bank, account 1 is a current asset, where stationery for account 2 will be expense or owner's equity. Now, if we look at the effect on the accounting equation, again, the cash decreased, and that is linked to the bank. So I'm talking about the bank when I say the cash increased or decreased here. And then lastly, stationery expense is owner's equity. So stationery will always be owner's equity when we're buying it for purposes of the business to use within the business, and that if it's an expense, then it makes the owner's equity of the business less. Remember, owner's equity is also seen as the money of the business. So the money of the business decreases when we are buying stationery. That was 1.1. 1.2, received money from the owner for capital contribution. Now, if I'm receiving money, obviously my money will increase. And it's from the owner for capital contribution. So let's look at the two accounts involved. So the two accounts involved will then be bank and capital. Bank again is a current asset. Capital will be owner's equity. Now, this is only identifying the two accounts, and that is classifying the two accounts. But now we have to say what is the effect on the accounting equation for both. Alright, bank, I received money, so the cash will increase, and capital contribution will be owner's equity that increases. So there's more owner's equity in the business, because we contributed capital. So that is why owner's equity will also increase. Now, just a rule of the accounting equation, you can actually say that there is a equal sign in the middle here. So a plus and a minus of the same amount will give me 0. This side, if it's a 0 on this side, to have it equal on that side, it must also be a minus. Sorry, if it's a minus on this side, it must also be a minus on that side. Then if it's a plus on this side, it must also be a plus on this side, because remember, there is a equal sign in the middle here. So that's just when we work with numbers as well. But yeah, showing you that the accounting equation must be equal. Equation must be equal, one side must be equal to the other side. Alright, so number 3, paid the telephone account. Okay, so what identify the two accounts? Bank, and what did I buy or pay for? Telephone. Bank again is a current asset. Telephone is an expense, which is also owner's equity. And now let's have a look what the effect will be on the accounting equation. So the cash decreased because I bought it, which decreases my assets. Telephone expense is owner's equity, and it decreases the owner's equity because when we are paying for something, the money of the business will definitely decrease. Okay, so that was 1.3. 1.4, purchased a factory premises. Okay, so I'm buying an asset. Okay, so I'm buying an asset, a factory premises, and the account that we normally use for any land and buildings will be the land and buildings account. So if it's land or it's a building, any kind of building, we call the account land and buildings. Doesn't matter if we only buy apartment flat within a block of flats, it will still be land and buildings. Okay, alright, so that was number 1.4. So let's look at the answer. Bank is the one account, land and buildings is the other account. Okay, account 1, current assets, bank is current assets, and land and buildings is also an asset, but it is non-current assets or fixed assets. Okay, now what happens here? So we didn't have enough space here, so that is why I'm going to write it on a different place as well. But cash decreased when we bought it, so cash decreased, but now there wasn't enough space to put 2 assets in, because remember, the other land and buildings is also an asset. So it's similar to the example that we did at the top over here, where there's 2 transactions under assets. So I just wrote it here on the side, and I wrote land and buildings increased. Land and buildings increased, asset plus. So it will be a minus and a plus for 1.4 under assets. Okay, 1.5, deposit received from a customer for services rendered. Deposit received from a customer for services rendered. Okay, 1.5, I received money, so bank is the one account. If it's services rendered, it will be current income. The account that we use for services, any services rendered, will be current income. Okay, bank is again a current asset, and then current income will be an income which is owner's equity. Alright, so now let's look at the bank one. As we said, the bank one is a current asset, so the cash increased over here. Okay, so the cash increased over here. Right, so that's what happened. The cash increased for 1.5, and then the income is owner's equity, and we can write here current income is the reason, and owner's equity increases. Right, so the current income, because I'm receiving current income, the money of the business or the owner's equity increases. That was 1.5. Okay, then 1.6, paid for the purchase of consumable goods. Okay, so I'm paying again, so my money will decrease. Okay, bank is the one account, so 1.6, bank is the one account, and what did we buy? We bought consumable goods. Bank is a current asset, consumable goods is a expense. Okay, so consumable goods is an expense, which is also owner's equity. Right, so under assets, effect on the accounting equation, assets decreased, or the cash decreased, bank decreased, whichever one you want to write down, and then consumable goods expense decreases the owner's equity. So yeah, so that is what's happening here. The money of the business becomes less because we're spending money on consumable goods. Right, number 1.7, received money from a tenant. Received money from a tenant. Okay, so 1.7, right, I'm receiving money, so bank is a one account. What did I receive the money for? It was rent income that I received. Bank is a current asset, rent income is an income or owner's equity. Okay, why do I write both? Because it will help me with the rest of the transaction as well, and I must know that income is a subsection of owner's equity. So what happens here? The cash decreased with the bank, so it relates to the bank over here, and the cash or the bank increased, assets increased therefore, and then rent income is the owner's equity, so I put it under the owner's equity column, and owner's equity increases. So if I receive an income, the money of the business increases. Okay, that's 1.7. 1.8, withdrew money for the cash register. Now what is a cash register? That is the till that you've got within your business where we put money in at the start of the day so that we've got some change for the first customers that comes to our business or come to our business. Okay, 1.8. Alright, so withdrew money for the cash register. So basically you taking the money from the bank and you putting it in a different place, but it is still an asset to you. So you will see now in 1.8, bank and cash float are the two accounts. Cash float is that money in the cash register, and both of these are current assets. Again, if they are both current assets, the effect on the accounting equation will show that both of them are assets. The one asset increased and the one asset decreased. So there's a decrease of the cash, but now the money is still in your business, but you're putting it in a till, and now the cash float also increased. 1.9. The owner withdrew money for personal use. Okay, so I'm taking money out of the business, so bank is the one account, and it's for personal use, so that is drawings. So 1.9, you will have a look over here, and account 1 and account 2, so still account 1, account 2, so 1.9, bank, okay, so one account, drawings is the second account, okay, and bank again is a current asset, and drawings will always be owner's equity. So what happens, the effect on the accounting equation now, the assets, the bank decreases, or your cash decreases, and owner's equity, drawings, makes the money of the business less. Think about it. If you take money out of the business, from the business account, the money will definitely, of the business will definitely become less. Remember, it might be in the owner's hands, but it's not in the business anymore. It's now in his personal capacity, and he uses it for personal use. He buys groceries for the household or whatever he wants to do with the money. And then lastly, number 10, paid the water and electricity accounts, and again we are paying money out. So number 10, bank is the one account, water electricity is what we are paying for, so that's account 2. Alright, account 1, bank, is the current asset again, and then water electricity is the expense, which is owner's equity. The cash decrease, the assets of the business decrease, and the owner's equity, the water electricity is owner's equity, and when we pay for the water electricity expense, the money of the business, the owner's equity, will decrease. So that was this activity on page 44 and 45 of the accounting booklets.